What's going on, guys? So this video is going to try to help answer some of the questions that folks have been asking about the new F450, why we got it in this specific configuration, why I traded in my truck that I had prior to this, and what the whole purpose was, considering my previous F450 was paid off. Now, when you walk up to this truck, the reason why you see the lights come on and the running boards come down is because it has a proximity sensor to the key, and when I get within about 12 feet of the truck, lights come on and the corresponding side running board drops down, which is really cool. Anyways, let's focus on answering some of the questions people had about this truck, about the whole situation, and why specifically this truck. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so let's first talk about why I traded in my 2017. And a lot of people know this already. If you've watched the videos, I've explained it all, but I'm going to just give you a quick rundown of it. My 2017 F450, when we bought it, it was $84,000. After tax and everything else, it was almost $90,000. That said, it was a wonderful truck. Didn't have any problems with it. I absolutely loved the ruby red. It's one of my favorite colors. They replaced it later with rapid red, also a great color. But from a configuration perspective, at the time, it was exactly what I was looking for, except for one feature that I didn't really care for. But again, because I didn't custom build the truck, because I had to find it at a dealership, I really didn't have the choice, right? And that was the sunroof. I'm not a big fan of sunroofs. I think people who watch my channel realize that I'm not a big fan of sunroofs, and that truck had one, but it also had every other feature I was looking for, including a feature that a lot of people want to have and they spec in, which is called the extra heavy service front suspension, which is a much stiffer front coil sprung suspension that's designed for a truck that might have a lot of really heavy things attached to the front, which my truck certainly did. Between the road armor bumper and the winch that was up front, I probably added upwards of 300 plus pounds worth of weight to that truck up front. Now, again, that truck had under 50,000 miles. Why would I trade in a truck that's in pretty much perfect condition with all these upgrades? It had like $25,000 worth of upgrades, considering the Alcoa wheels, the bumpers on it that were paint matched, the onboard air system, the airbags that were on the truck. It had a lot of upgrades to it. Most of them were subtle. Most of them were upgrades that didn't involve lifting the truck, putting big, huge tires on it, big, huge wheels on it. They were what I would consider to be very functional upgrades. The bumpers for me are more for a sense of security, knowing that if somebody hits you, accidentally in a parking lot, or if a deer runs out in front of you on some of our South Texas roads, or a hog, that you're not going to, total out your bumper and possibly do critical damage to your vehicle if you accidentally run into one of them because they dart out at night. So again, that truck was in near perfect condition. It was the absolute best truck I've ever owned. And again, people are going to say, why did you trade it in? Well, first and foremost, my whole premise of getting that truck was for the type of content I could produce with that truck. It's a YouTube channel. My channel is all about trucks and RVs. I am a automotive journalist as well. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to get the newest truck to talk about and showcase the newest technology. It's a big deal. Now, I had that truck for 7 years, and owning that truck for 7 years, it depreciated quite a bit. When COVID was a big thing, I was being offered $80,000 and $81,000 just for dealerships to buy my truck out so they could have it sit on their lot. And I turned those offers down because I knew I wouldn't be able to replace it with another truck. Trucks were very, very hard to come by. You were paying a huge premium for them at the time. And if you found an F450, there were dealerships that were marking them up $30,000 and $40,000. And I knew the new body style was coming out as well. So I, really wanted to wait for that to happen. And in 2022, mid to late 2022, I put my first order in for a rapid red F450 Platinum. And, I waited and waited and waited, and it never came. And around September of 23, the dealership basically said, you're not going to get your truck. They're going to switch it to a 24, so let's go ahead and put the order in now. Did that. They told me it would be a few months, about 4 months till I would get the truck. The truck never came in. And the order is still there. The dealership didn't cancel the order because they want to get one if they get it. So having all these orders in improves the chance that they might get one for their dealership lot. In the meantime, I found this truck. And there are folks out there who are going to say, why did you opt for white? Why did you opt for black interior? Why don't you have a sunroof? If you've watched my channel long enough, you know that I'm not a big fan of sunroofs on pickup trucks. And believe it or not, I didn't even know this truck didn't have a sunroof on it until I got into the truck after going to the dealership. I didn't know based off of the computer because I wasn't really looking online at those features. And when I got there, my wife pointed out, hey, look, there's no sunroof. And I gave her a thumbs up because that was actually a pretty awesome surprise. That said, I didn't pick the color, but the color had to be a color I liked. Now, a lot of people look at white and they automatically assume fleet. This is not a fleet white truck. This is more of a pearl white truck. And the actual color is called Star White Platinum Tri-Coat. And this color is the most expensive optional color you can get on a Super Duty. It's $1,000 paint job, or $1,000 premium paint job. So you pay $1,000 over the price of the normal truck with a normal color to get this paint job. So it's got a ton of metallic in it. It is a deep white. It's a beautiful color. And Ruby Red actually is, or Rapid Red now, is actually like a $500 upgrade. So this is twice the cost of Rapid Red or any other color, premium color that you can pick on the Super Duty, and that's $1,000 more than any of the base colors. So it's kind of crazy. Is white my first choice? Well, white was actually my second choice. I did not want black. As most people know, it gets pretty hot out here in South Texas, so I wasn't looking for a black truck. But I did want a truck that had a color that I really liked. And you all know I had an F450, a 2016 F450 Platinum, that kind of launched my channel off. I had a 2011 F250 Lariat, and that truck was super cool. People really liked that one. But then when I got the Platinum F450, the 2016, people really, really loved that truck, and they wanted to know the differences between it and an F350. And again, that's kind of what launched my channel off. So that truck was white platinum tri-coat on a black interior. So this is essentially coming full circle. This is white platinum or star white platinum tri-coat on a black interior, and I think it looks absolutely drop dead gorgeous, especially in the sun where you can see the metallic, you can see the depth of the paint. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, again, it doesn't have a sunroof, which I'm a big fan of. If I could have custom spec'd out this truck, let me tell you the things I probably would have added. So the first thing I likely would have added is the extra heavy service front suspension, which this truck does not have. And I instantly would have regretted it, because by not having that suspension, it doesn't mean I can't put aftermarket bumpers and a winch and everything on the front. It just means that the front of the truck has a softer suspension. And you definitely notice that when you go over bumps. My wife has no problem riding with me in this truck now, where she hated riding with me in my red truck because it was so rough. This truck having the standard front suspension is so much smoother. And I think there's a lot of tweaks that Ford has done over the last 7.5 years to make the 450 a much smoother, more compliant vehicle. And this is certainly an example of that, because it rides so much better than my previous F450. And part of it, I believe, is the fact that it does not have the extra heavy service front suspension, which if you actually go to Ford's website and you build a truck out with that, you add that feature, either as part of a camper package or an independent feature, it will tell you that the ride quality is degraded significantly because of that. So I'm glad that it doesn't have it, because I would have added it, and I did add it to the build that I had pending. So I'm glad that this truck doesn't have that. Secondly, I would have added the steps that come down below these side steps right here. Not because I need them, but because I think it would have been a good thing to demonstrate their functionality. There's a lot of people who get trucks, they lift them, they do all sorts of crazy things that make it a really, really high step to get into the vehicle. But then most of the folks who tow RVs, most of the folks who use these as regular pickup trucks and not, some off-road lifted, show truck, they are looking for convenient ways to access things. And anything a manufacturer can add that makes the truck more convenient to use, I think, is a benefit, especially for folks who are older in age, who might have back problems, who don't want to climb up on a step that's 2 feet off of the ground, because that's actually a pretty high step up. And when you have another step that drops down below it, it definitely can give you a little bit more ease of accessibility to do things like get into your bed or to get into your toolbox, especially if you're hitching up a fifth wheel, things like that. So So I do wish that I had those steps. It might be a feature that I add in the aftermarket. Another feature that I would have liked to test are the fully reclining seats. Not because I absolutely need them, but because there are times where I'm traveling on the road for such a long time that it is nice to be able to kind of lay flat and recline. And it would have been interesting just to give you all a perspective of how that worked and how it felt. You know, it's very, very common for folks who RV and to travel to take little breaks on the road, to stop at rest stops, stop at gas stations, and take a short little nap. And it would have been interesting to test those seats out. Now, the seats that are in here are the seats that come in the Platinum truck, which are the, I guess what you used to call the multi-contour seats, the massaging seats that are heated and cooled. But they don't lay completely flat. They lay near flat, just not completely flat. And the flat folding seats, I feel, would have been a great addition, just so I could have experienced what that's like if we do stop at a rest stop when we're towing the fifth wheel and I wanted to take a quick nap. Again, just to kind of see how that system worked. Now, when it comes to this truck specifically, again, it was not an ordered truck. This was a truck at a dealership lot that I was able to locate before they sold it. There was a premium. It was actually close to a $4,000 premium. It was like $3,700 over MSRP, which was like $999,900, something along those lines. And I paid above retail, and that's usually a big no-no for me. It's a huge no-no. But finding a truck that you're going to pay retail for on a dealership lot is insanely difficult. Or if you do find it, the trade-in value that they give you on your vehicle is going to reflect a market adjustment, basically where they're going to give you less for your vehicle. So even though they're not a type of dealership that marks up their trucks, they've in essence given you less for your vehicle, so it has marked up your trade-in value. And for me, trading in the vehicle versus selling it outright was really important because there was a huge tax credit that you get on the trade-in value of your vehicle. Basically, the taxes you've already paid on your vehicle go as a credit towards your new vehicle. If I had bought this vehicle outright, it would have been nearly $7,500 in taxes. Because I traded my vehicle and I got $60,000 in trade equity towards my vehicle, money that had already had taxes paid on it, my tax liability was like $2,200, $2,300. So the equivalent there is that I actually got closer to $64,000 trade-in value for my vehicle versus selling it to someone else and then taking that money to a dealership and buying a new vehicle and then paying full sales tax on that vehicle. I hope that makes sense. I know most people who trade vehicles, buy vehicles, know that already, but that's the reason why I didn't try to sell this outright. I know that it was going to be more difficult, or I knew that it was going to be more difficult for someone to finance it personally, not through a dealership, then have to go get their tags, go have to get the title, go have to get it registered, all of that stuff, versus if I traded my truck at a dealership, the dealership takes care of most of that for you, right? It's part of the sales process. They get your vehicle titled, they get your vehicle registered, they get your vehicle set up, so you can even find a good lending agency to buy that vehicle and to pay for it. And that was a big part of it as well. I did not want to go through the hassle of trying to deal with a purchaser in the private market, try to buy the vehicle only to be turned down, only to run into scenarios where perhaps they changed their mind or they had, you know, some type of a second thought at the last minute and I'm having to relist it and relist it. It actually happened a couple times. So I had 3 buyers who were really serious about buying my red truck. They were folks who had reached out to me while I had the truck and said, if you ever plan on selling it, let me know. I gave all of them an opportunity. One of them's local and he was super interested. Then last minute, he had an emergency come up and he said, I can't do it. So I just, again, don't want to deal with that. When you deal with a reputable large dealership, you know that they're good for it. They're going to give you the money you're asking or that they're offering, and that the price that they're selling you the vehicle for, it's all broken down. So that was a big part of why I traded it in versus just trying to sell it outright. A lot of folks want to know why I didn't keep the Alcoa wheels that were on my previous truck. Well, the reason for that is, as most of you know, I went through hell trying to balance out tires and wheels after swapping them out. I could never get it back to factory balanced ride. It just could not happen. I don't know why. I tried everything from balancing beads, I tried everything from weights, to eventually putting Centromatic balancing rings on, which are the things a lot of semi-truck owners put on their trucks to balance out their wheels. I traded the truck with those on it. And I even had it weighted at the same time to help the Centromatic balancing rings. And it still, to me, didn't feel 100% balanced. Whenever you would get to 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, it felt like the truck had a slight shake to it. And I almost felt like that was just inherent to F450s. Well, after driving this truck, it absolutely drove smoother than my other F450 ever did. It is the smoothest riding pickup truck I've been in a long time, even upwards of 75, 80 miles an hour whenever I was passing some folks coming home. Now, that basically told me that don't mess with it. Don't mess with it. Don't mess with the wheels, the tires. It is set up perfectly. Yes, the Alcoa wheels look beautiful. Yes, they're genuine Alcoa wheels. Yes, they would be a considerable accessory upgrade to the truck, but it just didn't make sense because I'm thinking if I don't have the ride I'm looking for, or that changes the ride characteristics from this really smooth riding truck today to a truck that on the way home is going to have a slight vibration or shake to it, I don't want to go through that. So I opted just to leave the Alcoas, leave the Centromatics on the other truck, and just deal with the wheels that are on this truck. Eventually, I may decide to upgrade to a different wheel, but that's probably going to be closer to the point to where I have to change the tires out anyways. The tires that are on here are the HDR5 tires. The tires that I eventually upgraded to on my 450, I had Firestones on the front, which were phenomenal tires. They were great. If you're wanting to know, if you're on the fence about them, absolutely phenomenal tires. Go back and look for the video where I put Firestone tires on the front of the F450. I had the HDR2s on the back, and those were a collaboration with Continental. The reason why I replaced them on the front is because I was getting really bad chipping. Basically, parts of the tire, the chunks on the front tire were starting to kind of tear themselves off. And I kind of attribute that to when I had all of my trailers at a storage facility on really, really thick caliche roads, that caliche would tear into the tires when I would turn. That's what I thought was happening because the back tires weren't doing it. And that's why I kept the back tires on. Now, the back tires wore fine. They were quiet, a lot quieter than the Firestone. That's the difference. The Firestones are quiet, not as quiet as the Continental tires, but I'm really excited to see what HDR5, the 5th generation of this tire, actually means and how they perform. So there's another reason why I didn't want to swap things around. I just did not want to mess up the balance of things and take the risk of, or create the risk of having some type of a weird vibration or a weird feel when I was driving a brand new truck home from a dealership. So that's the reason why I didn't swap out the Alcoas. Now, some folks are telling me that there are potentially headlight issues with the new Super Duty. So our specific Super Duty has the projector headlights, which you only get on Platinum or Limited. The bottom one is actually your low beam. The top one is your high beam, and then of course your fog light. They're all projectors. You have dual projectors up front, which you can see right there. You have this really long horizontal kind of rectangular projector down there. The low beams on this truck are fantastic. Tons of light output, super wide. They both level up and down automatically based on the load in the truck, and they also rotate side to side whenever you're turning. And whenever you turn, the corresponding fog light comes on at the same time. I don't even need to turn the light on. If I just move the steering wheel at night to the right far enough, that light will turn on automatically, and it actually does a good job of illuminating around corners. Same with the other side. It's a great light setup. However, the high beams cast a really strange I don't know what you would call it, kind of a refraction. It shows a bunch of lines. I've had one specific subscriber with I think it's a Limited or a Platinum that has the same lights, and it's been a big concern to him. He actually reported it to a government agency because he doesn't think it's safe. I feel like the light output is absolutely amazing. Low beams and high beams, fog lights, they all do an absolutely phenomenal job of light output. But I do agree that the pattern from the high beams is a little weird, and I don't personally think it would ever put me in a situation where it's unsafe. But this gentleman said, driving through the mountains, things like that, it could definitely cause some issues. And if that's the case, yeah, then it's something Ford should definitely take a look at. But they are insanely bright. They cover a huge swath of road and front area in front of you. So much so that I don't need to put a light bar on here. Not even kidding you. They're that bright. If I put a light bar on, it might enhance it a little bit, but it's not going to improve it really, because the lighting output on the front of this truck is insane. That said, still on the fence about bumpers. I love the way this front bumper looks. I really do. I know there's going to be a lot of folks who think I should upgrade, and I'm still on the fence about it. Again, like I said earlier, the purpose of a front bumper upgrade to me is that extra protection in case a deer runs out or a hog runs out or somebody is being irresponsible and they back into you. Because this bumper, even though it's made out of steel, it's going to be far more susceptible to damage if somebody runs into it. Or again, if I run into something running across the road at night. You got your parking sensors on here. You have your radar cruise control on here. You have some expensive fog lights. All of this stuff would likely be destroyed if I even hit something relatively light crossing the road. So the case for a new bumper is actually pretty important for me, but I don't know what bumper I'd want to go with, because whatever I go with, I really would want it to have a very OEM look to it, just stronger, and possibly positioning things in ways to where they're less likely to get damaged if I were going to get involved in some type of an accident. Now, I don't really know what else I can mention. My previous F450 was paid off, so the $60,000 trade-in value they gave me for it, all of that went towards the new truck. That's one of the reasons why I could stomach this truck being above MSRP by about $4,000. In my opinion, I still got a good value on this truck, considering my other truck likely would have never come in, and also considering that many of these trucks are selling for much, much more than the premium I paid. And again, I only financed roughly 40 grand, less than that, because I put some money down on it as well. At the end of the day, it's a beautiful truck. I love the fact that I opted for the 6.7 liter high output Power Stroke. There was actually a Platinum I was looking at and almost got that did not have the high output engine, and I was convincing myself not to get it because of some comments that were left on videos I made a long time ago, where people actually said, you know what, are these insanely high power vehicles possibly contributing to frame flex and frame related issues? Because you have so much torque, so much power when you take off, you're creating a huge lever on the front of your RV. That moment can damage things. It can cause metal to break or shear. And are people even considering that? Or are they just thinking that more power, more torque is always better, not understanding the consequence that it can have on the things that you tow? And I was thinking about that, and I'm thinking, boy, you get well over 445, 450 horsepower and 1,050 plus pound-feet of torque in the standard Power Stroke. Why do I need 500 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet of torque with a high-output engine? Is it truly something that makes sense? And I almost considered not getting the high output and finding, or just getting the Platinum that had the standard output. But I'm glad I opted for the high output. I think that that's the engine most people want to know about, and it's the engine most people are probably going to opt to buy, because it's like a $2,500 upgrade to do that. And again, I think most people are probably checking that box. Anyways, guys, I hope I answered most of your questions. I hope I addressed most of the concerns people had and why I traded the truck and why this specific truck. If you have any other questions, please leave a comment below. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you again very soon.